All living organisms need energy for carrying out their functions. So, to perform their functions, they take macronutrients and essential micronutrients in the form of food. These complex insoluble substances are digested with the help of enzymes to form simple soluble substances. This simple and soluble food material is absorbed and then assimilated in body cells. The assimilated food holds energy in their chemical bonds. Their bond energy is released by oxidation in the cells. During oxidation, oxygen is used and CO2 and H2O are produced. CO2 being harmful is removed from the cells, but H2O being useful retained in the cells. Energy released during this process is trapped by forming ATP bundles. This energy is called biologically useful energy and used for various metabolic processes.
Hello students, I welcome you all to today's lesson about an important metabolic process which helps us to survive on the earth, that is, human respiration. It is a simple and universal fact that oxygen is necessary to sustain life. Oxygen is that element which permits life to exist on earth. ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਜੀਵਤ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਮਨੁੱਖਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਦੀ ਸਾਹ ਕਿਰਿਆ ਲਈ ਆਕਸੀਜਨ ਇੱਕ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਐਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ। ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਸਰੀਰ ਸਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਕਿਰਿਆ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਸਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਣਾਲੀ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਆਕਸੀਜਨ ਗ੍ਰਹਿਣ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਲਈ ਸਾਹ ਕਿਰਿਆ ਯਾਨੀ ਰੈਸਪੀਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਸੈਲੀ ਅਮੀਬਾ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਤੱਕ ਹਰ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। The respiratory system in humans consists of a complex set of organs and tissues that capture oxygen from the environment and transport the oxygen into the lungs. The respiratory system does this through breathing. When we breathe, we inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. The respiratory system consists of respiratory organs that all work together in a systematic manner. In today's topic, we will study these organs and discuss their role in carrying out the process of respiration. But before proceeding further, first let me share the learning objectives for today's lesson.
Upon completion of this topic, learners will be able to define respiration, discuss different types of respiration, describe the process of respiration in human beings, describe human respiratory system, explain the mechanism of breathing in humans, discuss artificial respiration.
Students, these were the learning objectives for today's lesson. Before proceeding further, first of all, let us check what is respiration.
Respiration is defined as the exchange of environmental oxygen with the carbon dioxide produced in the cells during oxidation at a moist surface. Respiration is the process that generally involves intake of molecular oxygen, oxidation of food with this oxygen, elimination of CO2 produced during oxidation, release of energy during oxidation, storage of this energy in the form of bonds such as ATP.
The place where the exchange of gases occurs is called the respiratory surface. The process of respiration takes place in the 3 stages. Now let us discuss 3 stages of respiration.
Stages of respiration. Respiration takes place in the 3 stages. External respiration. The exchange of gases between the environment and the body is called external respiration or gaseous exchange. It is also called as physical process. Next stage of respiration is internal respiration. Internal respiration. The exchange of gases between the body spaces or fluids and the cells is called internal respiration or tissue respiration. The area over which this exchange takes place is called the respiratory surface. Third and last stage of respiration is cellular respiration. Cellular respiration. The biochemical process which break down the respiratory substrate to release energy and CO2 takes place in the tissues within the cells of an organism. This process is called as cellular respiration.
Students, actually respiration is the sequence of events that results in the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the atmosphere and the cells of the body, and oxidation of food to release energy. Most of plants and animal cells respire in the presence of oxygen. However, there are certain microbes such as yeast, bacteria like E. coli, Clostridium tetani, etc. that respire in the absence of free oxygen. Depending upon the presence or absence of oxygen, respiration may be classified into two types. So now we will study the types of respiration.
Types of respiration. There are two types of respiration: aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration. We will study both these types of respiration. Let us start with aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is a process of cellular respiration that uses oxygen in order to break down substrate or glucose, which then release electrons and create energy. In the process of aerobic respiration, a substance is formed known as adenosine triphosphate, that is ATP. This is responsible for storing and carrying most of the energy to other body cells, thus making life possible. Aerobic respiration, shown here by red arrow, is the main means by which both plants and animals utilize energy in the form of organic compounds that was previously created through photosynthesis, shown here by green arrow. Here is a balanced chemical equation for the process of aerobic respiration. Glucose reacts with oxygen and releases carbon dioxide, water and energy in the presence of enzymes.
Students, this aerobic respiration is of two main types: direct respiration and indirect respiration. If we talk about direct respiration, it is the exchange of environmental oxygen with the carbon dioxide of body cells without special respiratory organs and without the aid of blood. This type of respiration occurs in aerobic bacteria, flatworms, roundworms, etc. Indirect respiration is a type of respiration which involves special respiratory organs such as skin, buccopharyngeal cavity, gills, lungs, and needs the aid of blood. Next type of respiration is anaerobic respiration. Let us discuss this type.
Anaerobic respiration. There are certain microbes that respire in the absence of free oxygen. This respiration is called anaerobic respiration. It is also called fermentation. It takes place in yeast, bacteria such as E. coli, Clostridium tetani, etc. The term anaerobic means without air, and hence anaerobic respiration refers to the special type of respiration which takes place without oxygen. Anaerobic respiration is the process of oxidation of molecules in the absence of oxygen. which results in production of energy in the form of ATP or adenosine triphosphate. The two common end products of anaerobic respiration are ethyl alcohol or lactic acid. The process of anaerobic respiration is shown by this chemical equation. Glucose broken down to form ethanol plus carbon dioxide, that is CO2, plus energy, that is ATP. Glucose broken down to form lactic acid plus energy, that is ATP.
ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥੀਓ, ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੈਸਪੀਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਆਪਕ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸੀ। ਆਓ ਹੁਣ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਰੈਸਪੀਰੇਟਰੀ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਹੋਰ ਜਾਣੀਏ। ਮਨੁੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਰੈਸਪੀਰੇਟਰੀ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਵਿੱਚ 에ਅਰਵੇਜ਼ ਯਾਨੀ ਹਵਾ ਦੀਆਂ ਥੈਲੀਆਂ, ਲੰਗਸ ਯਾਨੀ ਫੇਫੜੇ ਅਤੇ ਰੈਸਪੀਰੇਟਰੀ ਮਸਲਸ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹਨ। This system consists of all the organs involved in breathing. These include nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi and lungs. The respiratory system does two very important things. The first is that it brings oxygen into our bodies, which we need for ourselves to live and function properly. And the second one is that it helps us get rid of carbon dioxide, which is a waste product of cellular function. The nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea and bronchi all work like a system of pipes through which the air is funneled down into our lungs. Molecules of oxygen and carbon dioxide are passively exchanged by diffusion between the gaseous external environment and the blood. So first of all, let us see the basic parts of human respiratory system.
Human respiratory system. The respiratory system consists of respiratory tract and respiratory organs, that is lungs. The respiratory tract is passage along which air travels from the atmosphere to reach lungs and for the foul air to return from the lungs to the exterior. The respiratory tract consists of external nares, nasal chambers, internal nares, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi and bronchioles. We will study all these parts in detail. Let us start with the external nares. External nares. The external nares are a pair of slit at the lower end of the nose, also called as nostrils. They open into nasal chambers. Nasal chamber. The nasal chambers are a pair of passages in the head above the palate, separated by nasal spectrum. Each chamber shows three regions: lower vestibular, middle respiratory and upper olfactory. Let us check these three regions. Vestibular region. It lies just within the external nares. It is very short and lined with skin. It bears hair and contains some sweat and oil glands. Respiratory region. It is the middle region of the nasal chamber. It is lined with respiratory epithelium. This is ciliated, pseudo-stratified, columnar epithelium rich in gland cells. The respiratory region acts as an air conditioning and filter unit in breathing.
Students, the third region of nasal chamber is olfactory region. It is the upper region of the nasal chamber. It is lined with olfactory epithelium. This epithelium is confined to the upper part of the nasal chamber and the superior nasal chamber. It acts as an organ of smell. Thus, organ of smell helps in selecting the air for inspiration. Next part of respiratory tract is internal nares. Internal nares are posterior openings of the nasal cavities that lead into the nasopharynx. Now comes the pharynx. Let us see where it lies.
Pharynx. It is located behind the nasal cavity and above the larynx. It is also a part of the digestive system of the human body. Food as well as air passes through the pharynx. The pharynx opens into the larynx through the glottis. Glottis is covered by a flap-like structure known as epiglottis during swallowing of food. The epiglottis covers the trachea to prevent food and water from entering the respiratory tract. Next part of respiratory tract is larynx. Larynx. Larynx is also called voice box. This is a cartilaginous box-like structure that is situated at the tracheal opening as shown here. The larynx will move up or down when we swallow to allow the passage of air or food safely. It consists of two pairs of membranes. It is associated with the production of sound, means responsible for human speech, as it contains two vocal cords. Air causes these vocal cords to vibrate, thus producing sound. The larynx is situated in the neck region and plays a vital role in the protection of the trachea. Next part of respiratory tract is trachea. Larynx is followed by trachea. It is a tube-like structure which is 11 cm in length and 2.5 cm in diameter. Trachea is also called the windpipe. The trachea is held open with the help of C-shaped cartilaginous rings as shown here in the visual. The cartilage protects the larynx and trachea from collapsing even when there is no air in them. The trachea then divides into two main branches called bronchi. Each is known as bronchus. Next part of respiratory tract is bronchi and bronchioles. Bronchi and bronchioles. In the middle of the thorax, trachea divides into two tubes, the major or primary bronchi. One major bronchus enters the right lung and the other the left lung. Right primary bronchus further divides into three lobar or secondary bronchi, which extend separately into the three lobes of the right lung. The left primary bronchus divides into two lobar or secondary bronchi that likewise pass into the two lobes of the left lung. The secondary bronchi subdivide into smaller bronchioles. The small terminal bronchioles give off respiratory bronchioles which divide into alveolar ducts. The latter enter the alveolar sacs. Alveoli have thin walls which form the respiratory surface. As you see here, alveoli are surrounded by several numbers of capillaries and forms a capillary bed. Also, it has been shown here that the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and air occurs through these walls. The respiratory passageways within the lungs are referred to as the bronchial tree.
Students, wall of trachea, bronchi and bronchioles is composed of fibromuscular tissue and is lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium rich in mucus secreting cells. The mucus holds the dust and bacteria which are swept by cilia towards the pharynx from where they are thrown out or swallowed. Students, these alveoli are very important, and do you know that the lungs contain about 300 million alveoli? Their total surface area would be about 70 square meters, that is 40 times the surface area of the skin. But the smoking makes it difficult for oxygen to be taken through these alveoli. when the cigarette smoke is inhaled, about 1/3 of the particles will remain within the alveoli. There are too many particles from smoking or from other sources of air pollution which can damage the walls of the alveoli. This causes a certain tissue to form. This tissue reduces the working area of the respiratory surface and leads to the disease called emphysema. Respiratory tract ਦੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਹਿੱਸਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਅੰਗ ਹਨ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ respiratory system ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਨ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਮਹੱਤਵਪੂਰਨ ਅੰਗ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਸਾਹ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਹਨ ਫੇਫੜੇ. So let us now discuss the human lungs in detail.
Lungs. Lungs form the most vital component of the human respiratory system. They are responsible for transporting oxygen from the atmosphere into blood and releasing carbon dioxide from blood to the atmosphere. They are located on the two sides of the heart. The lungs are large and lobed organs in the chest, also known as the thoracic cavity. There is a pair of lungs known as the left lung and the right lung. The left lung is slightly smaller because of the heart, which is slightly to the left of the body, and the right lung is bigger. These are divided up into lobes or big sections of tissue separated by fissures or dividers. The right lung has 3 lobes: right superior, right middle, and right inferior, as shown here in the visuals. The left lung has only 2 lobes, left superior and left inferior. Lungs are spongy and elastic organs that are broad at the bottom and taper at the top. They consist of air sacs, the alveoli. The lungs also have blood vessels that are the branches of the pulmonary artery and veins. Each lung is enclosed in 2 membranes, the pleura, which actually are the layers of peritoneum of the thorax. The inner membrane is called the visceral pleuron. It is firmly bound to the surface of the lungs. The outer membrane is called the parietal pleuron. It is bound to the thoracic wall and the diaphragm by connective tissue. The 2 pleura are continuous with each other over the major bronchi and blood vessels of the lungs. A very narrow space exists between the 2 pleura. It is called the pleural cavity and contains a film of watery fluid, the pleural fluid, which lubricates the pleura so that they may slide over each other without friction as the lungs expand and contract in respiration. So, the lungs are capable of expanding and contracting as they are elastic organs. Thin sheets of epithelium or pleura separate the inside of the chest cavity from the outer surface of the lungs. The bottom of the thoracic cavity is formed by the diaphragm.
This was a brief description of the structure of the human respiratory system. It is that vital system in our body which enables us to literally breathe new life at every instant of time. After this, we will study how these respiratory organs work together and carry out this process of breathing in our body, as breathing is the most essential and the most constant activity that human beings do. It is also the first independent thing we do and also the last. So let us study mechanism of breathing.
Mechanism of breathing. Breathing is involuntarily process. It is controlled by respiratory center in brain. This respiratory center is present in medulla oblongata. Lungs inflate and deflate because they are expanded and compressed by movements of the rib cage and diaphragm. A healthy man breathes 12 to 14 times per minute. Breathing consists of two phases, inspiration, expiration. Let us discuss these steps one by one. Inspiration. It is the breathing of fresh air. When we breathe, air from outside enters into the alveoli of the lungs. This is inhalation. During inspiration, the volume of thoracic cavity and lungs increases as the diaphragm and a band of muscles contract. The diaphragm lies at the base of the thorax, separating the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. The diaphragm is a sheet of skeletal muscle. It can contract under automatic or voluntary control. Therefore, when diaphragm contracts, it flattens out. This flattening out of the diaphragm causes the size of the thorax to increase. Thus, the diaphragm moves downwards, increasing the volume of the thoracic or chest cavity. Here, band of muscles known as external intercostal muscles of the thorax are also often involved in inspiratory breathing. When these muscles contract, they raise the ribs and elevate the sternum. You see, the contraction of the diaphragm increased the thoracic volume by lowering the bottom border of the thorax, while the external intercostal muscles increase thoracic volume by raising the top border of the thorax. The air follows this route. External nares to nasal chambers, to internal nares, to pharynx, glottis, to larynx, to trachea, to bronchioles, then to upper lower alveolar ducts, and then finally to alveolar sacs.
These all movements increase the volume and therefore lower the air pressure in the alveoli below atmospheric pressure. Because air always flows from a region of high pressure to a region of lower pressure. Air is forced into the lungs through the respiratory tract and into the alveoli. This is called negative pressure breathing, changing the pressure inside the lungs relative to the pressure of the outside atmosphere. Now let us see how the gas exchange between air and blood occurs in alveoli.
Gas exchange at the alveoli. Air from the atmosphere passes through the conducting airway until it reaches the alveoli. Gas exchange takes place over the surface of the alveoli. The alveoli are covered in dense capillary beds in which blood is constantly circulated as shown here. The walls of the alveoli are only 1 cell thick, and this is called the respiratory surface, where the exchange of gases takes place. Around the alveoli are microscopic capillaries that bring carbon dioxide from the heart via pulmonary artery and delivers oxygen back to the heart via the pulmonary vein. Gas exchange happens when there is a difference in partial pressure at the semi-permeable membrane of the alveoli through diffusion. Oxygen diffuses from the air in the alveoli into these capillaries, where it then enters the blood system. As oxygen enters, carbon dioxide diffuses out of the blood system and into the air in the alveoli. Oxygen is then transported throughout the body by the blood, while the carbon dioxide waste is exhaled back to the external environment through the same route that the oxygen entered.
Now the final step in respiration is expiration. Expiration is normally a passive process as it uses no energy. Expiration is the opposite of inspiration because in expiration the diaphragm and the intercostal muscle relax. Let us see how it occurs.
As the diaphragm and band of muscles relax, this allows the diaphragm to move upwards and the band of muscles let the rib cage relax to its resting state as shown here in the visual. Due to the relaxation of muscles, the flattened diaphragm becomes dome-shaped. The volume within the thoracic cavity now decreases. This decrease in volume now causes an increase in pressure above atmospheric pressure and the air is pushed outside as shown here in the video. So, in inspiration air is inhaled and in expiration air is exhaled. The movements of the diaphragm and the ribs during inspiration and expiration are called breathing movements. The foul air follows this route: alveoli, alveolar ducts, to bronchioles, to bronchi, then to trachea, to larynx, to glottis, then to pharynx, to internal nares, to nasal chambers, then to external nares, and finally to atmosphere.
Students, this is all about the human respiration. Now let us focus on next point of discussion, which is artificial respiration. Artificial respiration is provided to a person who has stopped breathing because of accidents, smoke inhalation, drowning, gas poisoning, electric shock, and anesthesia. The purpose of artificial respiration is to ventilate the alveoli and to stimulate the respiratory centers of brain. Mouth-to-mouth method of artificial respiration is commonly used. In this method, the rescuer seals the affected person's mouth with his or her mouth and breathes into the airway through the mouth. In some instances, the rescuer may need to form a seal with the patient's nose. Typical reasons for this include maxillofacial injuries or the remains of vomit in the mouth. This is known as mouth-to-nose method of artificial respiration. So students, enough for today. Let's quickly check with some short questions what you have grabbed today. Be attentive. Here are some questions. Question number 1. What is respiration? Well, the answer is respiration is defined as the exchange of environmental oxygen with the carbon dioxide produced in the cells during oxidation at a moist surface. Now the next question is, name two basic components of human respiratory system. Answer: respiratory tract and respiratory organs are the two basic components of human respiratory system. My next question to you is, what is direct respiration? Answer: direct respiration is the exchange of environmental oxygen with the carbon dioxide of body cells without special respiratory organs and without the aid of blood. This type of respiration happens in aerobic bacteria, flatworms, roundworms, etc. Now the next question is, name the different parts of respiratory tract of man. And the answer is, the respiratory tract consists of external nares, nasal chambers, internal nares, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi and bronchioles. Now another question is, name the main respiratory organs of man. Well, the answer is, lungs are the main respiratory organs of man. Hope I have made a successful attempt to clear all your concepts regarding respiration in human beings, which will help you in fetching good marks in the exam. Thanks for your cooperation and attention. Looking forward to the next class. See you then. Thanks.